Welcome back to a new top 20 list. This time, I'm going to be looking and discussing about my top 20 favorite game case designs. Now, this is looking at strictly the outward and design overall, and the layout of everything on the front of the case, and looking at things from the side, but these are my own personal top 20 favorite case designs, so keep that in mind. And I'm strictly looking at one design for each console, as some consoles had one or two redesigns of the cases, so I'm looking at specifically my favorite version from that console. So with that said, and the music today, by the way, choice I chose in the background is from Gravity Rush. So with that said, coming in first up at 20, I know a lot of people give a lot of flack and stuff, give a lot of bashing on the basic like sketchbook design on the background. But for me personally, at number 20 is the Sega Master System. Yes, it is a somewhat very simplistic art design, but overall, at least it's honest about what the game, presentation, everything is going to be like. And I think it also helps specifically this console boxes to actually stand out, and given also at the time when it came out, most things were still cardboard boxes, which were basically thrown away. But with this being a good, decent, hard quality plastic, people were more likely to actually keep it in the original case and stuff. And that helped you actually find as a collector more complete in box. But I do like it for the simplistic and the fact you will not forget at least the Master System case, for better or for worse. But for me, that's number 20. Coming at number 19, maybe a somewhat controversial opinion. I'm sure most people have this high up on their list just for nostalgia of the console itself, but I am looking for the perspective of the design and everything. Now, for me, at number 19 is the Super Nintendo box art. Again, of course, they stick with the cardboard, which is sadly, which is kind of weird how, at least with their handhelds, they went into plastic cases a little bit earlier. But overall, also, I appreciate, though, the one thing here, some people have probably never noticed these dots. There is 16 dots in total, if you count, representing the 16 bits on the console. So that is a nifty little thing that probably escapes a lot of people. Probably don't even notice with the cases, but that's what actually the 16 dots are supposed to represent, the 16-bit graphics. But with that said, overall, as a case goes, I mean, it's not bad, but I think overall design-wise, definitely have seen better overall, I think, even cardboard box designs. Personal opinion. For me, coming in next, a bit more modern, but for me at 18 is the Xbox One design. Personally, I like it. I do think it's interesting how they did this. Now, the only reason it doesn't get higher, though, I actually kind of like the shade of green they went with the Xbox One case. I definitely prefer the green shade they went with this over the 360. It is my least favorite personal Xbox designs. Don't expect a 360 case on here. Plus, it was like two or three different designs of the 360 case, where at least with the one, they actually stuck with this design the whole lifetime. And the only drawback about this is the fact that this is painted on rather than branded like traditional like you would have in the past. So that means that if it's not taken care of the best, then basically this is going to obviously over time the paint will start chipping off. But if you take good care of things and are very cautious, at least it's more likely to stay intact like you see on right here. But still, like I said, I like the green. I like the overall aesthetic of the Xbox One case. I think it's pretty good overall. Personal opinion though. Next up, coming in at number 17 is for me PS3, but specifically the first version of the PS3 box art. As total, there will be three versions. There was this, then there was the revamp, which is not half bad, don't get me wrong. For a while there, it was probably my favorite. But as time has gone on, I've come to actually appreciate the original design. Like, I like the logo better on the side like this. And I love, like, the whole, like, it's shining like it's steel or something. Personally, it's just more aesthetic and look and stuff catches my eye a little bit more with this version of the cover on the side and everything. But everything is subjective, and then later they would do a new PS3 version, which looked more like the PS4, but still it did not look as good as the PS4 in my opinion. So, with that said, yeah, this comes in at 17. Coming in next at 16 is arguably my favorite of the Xbox case art design, is the original Xbox. Now, overall, I do like the shade of green. It's one of the things I liked about the one. They went back to more this towards this shade of green. Is technically a little bit brighter still, nevertheless. But still, I like the shade of green for what it is. It goes good with some games, and I do like the regular Xbox logo here design, and on the side you have like the Xbox thing that you have on the main screen of the actual console itself. But from a just aesthetic perspective and stuff, I actually do genuinely like the original Xbox art style and everything. That's the looks of everything. Actually, I think it's really good. I personally just like it more than probably a lot of people out there. Next, coming in at 15, I definitely think this is probably the best overall cardboard case design and stuff that Nintendo produced. I think it is definitely superior to the Super Nintendo box art, though as a console, I much prefer Super Nintendo. But this is one area where I actually think the N64 did better. I definitely like the overall look and design better. At least if you want to say, like, lay the box like this and stuff, at least the logo shows really good, and that is good for from an artistic standpoint, or if you want to lay it sideways on a shelf or something, at least you can actually see the name of the game and stuff, which is something you don't have with the Super Nintendo and some other old style box art designs. Next up is one of my personal favorite, obviously, designs, and that's the PSP art. This design would be originally set, though later on Nintendo would adopt the same overall case design with the Switch. But still, I like the PSP for what it is design. I like the size and everything. I think looks great personally. I think the side looks good with the PSP. It went with more of the secondary version of the PS3 art, but still, overall, I love the PSP. I just love the size and overall design and layout of everything. And just the way they did the PSP and like the logo initials and stuff at this time period is one of my favorite things. Next up, at around, I think we're now at around 13, is the DS. I am not the biggest fan of the 3DS case, like the Switch sides, and then the new 3DS, they put it up top there, which I have no clue why they did that. But with this, I actually like the DS design overall. It's somewhat simplistic. It's based on like the main screen of the actual DS itself, and I actually appreciate that quite a bit. And then when you open, the fact it actually has a built-in holder in the earlier era where you could put a GBA game cartridge in it, and that is actually really appreciated and really cool. One of my favorite things about the DS case design is because of things like that. It's also the reason I like some other cases quite a bit too. But for me, yeah, I like this quite a bit. Next up, at like 12, I have the PS2. Now the box itself is somewhat very simplistic with the basic PS2 header on the top with, of course, your PlayStation logo. Then on the side, I actually think looks really good. This is one of my preferred, I would say probably top 5 or 6 favorite game console like sideliners. Just the way it looks overall is up there definitely. And yeah, it is a much more simplistic design, but I think it actually does very well for the most part, how the overall layout everything. And like with others, one of the things I like about this is the fact you could hold your PlayStation memory card in the case. And that is something I always found quite interesting, that you could do with this as well as the GameCube box art. But for its simplicity, I think the PS2 is overall very good. Sometimes simple can pay off very well. Next up, we're at 11. Now, this is what would end up stealing the overall case design and layout. Overall, the aesthetics of the PSP. Yep, PSP is literally just a tiny bit taller, and that is about the only difference. But overall, they stole the design, but I actually like the Switch version of it a little bit better. Mostly because from the side, at the perfect red, and all the cartridges that go together is like a perfect row of red. Just like with the PS4, perfect blue with the liners. And looking at things from the side, the way it's going to be on your shelf, that is one of the things that puts the Switch at 11. I love overall just the side, the coloration and everything is great. They stuck and they're very consistent with the Switch case design overall, and I actually appreciate that. Also, never get a chance, try out the Shantae games, great platformers. Next up at number 10 is definitely going to be somewhat controversial, and a lot of people hate on these jumbo-sized things, but for me, at 10 is the 3DO case. Like I said already, I like it because even though it takes up way too much space, I'll be honest, with how humongous this thing is, to put it in perspective, I'll show you the next one up, just so you know already. But coming at number 9 is the original long box Saturn case. I personally like it also, but I actually like, overall I do like this one a little bit more, mostly because I like that at least it's a good quality hard plastic case, and that's good. But yeah, this is the size difference. This is a little wider, but this is definitely taller between the two. But for me, yeah, I like it for what it is. Definitely is unique in how you open. And of course, the original PS1 launch would also go more this direction, for the most part. And also, you would have like advertisements on the inside of future upcoming games. That is actually really cool and very unique. One of the things that puts the 3DO up so high is at least you're not going to mistake the case for anything or anyone else. The same can be said about the Giant. Also, of course, this is based on, obviously, the Sega CD case Giant ones, which later they would trade in for the smaller jewel cases, like the PS1 would do much earlier on. But for what is, I actually like the jumbo size one, even if it does take up the size of like 4 normal size jewel cases. But I like it for it being so big and brash and out there like the 3DO. The fact you're not going to mistake this for anything else is one of the things that really helps it stand out. And I actually really like the Saturn logo, as of course you all know. Coming in next at number 8 is the PS4 case. Like I said, I love the aesthetics and the overall coloration of the blue. I especially love the shade of blue they went with. As anybody may know, or may not know, I'm a UK fan, and given this is pretty much the same as UK blue, I love it that much more. A little biased, admittedly, but hey, whatever. But yeah, I love just rows of the perfect blue and everything, and I'm not the biggest fan of the PS5 because of using the blue case, which is great, but then going with like more of a silver in the place of blue, it looks stupid in my opinion. I hope they change it. Personally, I would prefer if they go back to the blue aesthetic overall like the PS4. I think it looks great, and I love, of course, the design, obviously, of the logo with the PS4. But yeah, for me, it's great. For a more simplistic style, it definitely works very well. Coming in number 7, somewhat probably controversial, but I love also, again, I love the color blue, and I like this shade of blue quite a bit. And I love the headliner, just the beautiful blue with the nice gold trim. Very similar to that of the GameCube. overall header, and that is a positive in my opinion. And I love actually the Wii U logo, the way it's perfect center, it's perfectly balanced as all things should be. But with that said, also I like the side for the most part that at least they look really good next to each other for the most part, since about 89% of the cases are pretty much identical like this design is very much appreciated, and I love I think in a lot of cases like this, the blue and gold trim actually go very good with the case art. And that's definitely a big positive for me. Next up, we're going a bit older with number 6, and that being the classic red design used for the Sega Genesis. Now, personally, I've always been a big fan of the Sega box art. The black is okay for specific games like Sonic 2 and a few others here and there, but I've always been a big fan of the red trim and stuff, as this was really the first console to really do really awesome, great. It would take on the box design overall of the Master System, but would finally find a standard header towards the later part of the lifespan of the console, and it looks great, and I think it looks really good with the red and silver lettering of Genesis, but then for some reason later on they would go to cardboard for some bizarre reason, like the 32X boxes, which makes no sense because this is nice and looked like we're talking almost 30 years later and the case is still in great shape. That's one thing I like about these older plastic cases. They were designed to actually last and take damage very well. Can't say the same for a lot of them nowadays. Coming in at number 5 is the GameCube box art. Like with the other, I do like the trim and of course the way it would do it, but the trim would start very lightly and barely and start turning more and more white across. That's a cool little detail I like. Also from a side perspective, I do find interesting that it's on the bottom instead of top like modern, but it helps it stand out, I think, above the rest. The only problem I have is the player's choice or whatever version cases with a nasty yellow. The green greatest hits for PS1 I can tolerate, but the yellow is disgusting. But with that said, still, I love the GameCube. I will always like, and like with others, of course, it would have a slot to put a memory card, which is really cool. And of course, I always gotta love the little mini disc. But seriously, these cases are actually very well built. Probably some of the best of this specific design plastic case. I think this is probably some of the best built plastic cases. It's definitely a better overall quality of plastic in my opinion. Doesn't break as easy as, say, original Xbox or PS2. Coming in at number 4, the PS1. Yeah, now I only have like 2 of the jumbo size boxes. Those don't stand out to me as much as they're giant, but they're cardboard for some reason instead of plastic. Though the plastic 3DO I think is overall a little bit better design, but I do like they decided to go with this stake to make it continue looking like the ridges like in the original Long. But I think it looks really great with the Joel case, and from the side, of course, header being all black with the logo and everything. All about overall looks, and that's one of the areas I think the PS1 actually is superb. I like to me, this is how you do the Joel case design overall, and the fact you would also have a lot of times good artwork at least and stuff with it, which is very much appreciated. But for me, maybe it's also blind nostalgia factor. But yeah, for me, I've always enjoyed the basic design of the PS1, because you're not going to mistake it between the ridges and the PlayStation logo with symbol and then the ESRB at the bottom. There's no way to mistake this for any other of the jewel case designs. And number 3 is one most people have probably never seen, but is my third favorite. Very simplistic and very, I guess you could say, adorable box design is the Bandai WonderSwan. This is a very unique box design. I like the way it goes perfectly and then bends pointing, that is perfect, and a representation of the way the actual handheld looks overall is really cool, and how overall everything looks. And I actually like the Wonder Swan like symbol artwork and everything, and even how like you open it up is very unique, as this is a tiny little cardboard box, and then when you pull it out, you have the papers underneath, and then this in a cool little protective case for the cartridge itself. It's definitely unique compared to any other early era handheld cases, which is one of the things that helps this really stand out and come in third. Second is the Dreamcast, and the thing is with this, it has a couple of variants too, specifically besides the like, of course, like greatest hits equivalent with the too much orange, in my opinion. You have, I think, a great black case design where you have the Dreamcast twice, you have the basic liner like the other stuff, those sideways where the GameCube would take this and instead do it downwards from the top. So, I wonder if this played a little influence in its design. And then you have the standard Dreamcast with just the one giant logo compared to the other version, which I still actually appreciate. And the fact this is the arrow basically representing the actual Dreamcast console itself, which is actually kind of cool representation, and I actually appreciate that quite a bit. And I love the white aesthetic, also everything on it. To me, both versions are actually great. I still like this a little bit more, as it's supposed to be like the top of the Dreamcast case, which is what makes it awesome. But with that said, coming at number one favorite is the Vita case. By far, to quote, like I said before, it is adorable, and if you want to use that word, but still, it is great in the fact you are not going to mistake this for any other case at all. It's impossible. You cannot and will not mistake it. There's really nothing inside, unfortunately. It's interesting how you take it out. But I like it, and I like how it uses the all blue, like the PS3 would adopt and like the PS4 uses. That's one of the things also helps us stand out, as I'm a big fan of the PS4 version, but I like the smaller take on the case personally, and you're not going to mistake it for any other. It's impossible. But I love it for its simplicity, and overall, I like the liner and just every aspect of it. Looks great sideways. I like overall how they do the art and everything in the placement. But with that said, that is my top 20 personal favorite, like, case designs of all time. With that said, I'll see y'all next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel, and have a good rest of January. See you soon.